So it was a funny thing with revenue going down, but actually profit was not going down. It actually went up a little.
This podcast interview really surprised me. I was expecting to meet someone defeated by the latest round of Google updates, making a lot less money without a plan on what to do next. After all, my guest today, Anne Moss, is the archetype of a niche site builder that Google has been going after with the HCU and the flurry of Google updates we've all just been through. She runs over 20 sites, does not believe in EEAT, and doesn't do any work for it on her sites. The authors have no photo, no bio, there's no team page, nothing about them on the About page. She uses AI content to help with content creation, and she doesn't do any link building, which means her sites are pretty low authority. Oh, and she makes most of her money from ads, and we all know what happened to the RPMs at the beginning of the year. And while she lost quite a bit of traffic in the recent round of updates, she confessed to me that because of her use of AI and having only 8 writers instead of 50 before, her profits were actually the same now as they were before AI and the recent updates. Which got me really curious about her AI content creation process, and we talk a lot about that in the interview. But what's even better is she managed to replace a large chunk of her previous Google traffic with Facebook pages traffic. That's right, the Boomer social network is apparently a great source of traffic with an even higher RPM than Google traffic these days. So how did she do it? What's her exact method, and how can you take this and apply this on your business? That's exactly what I wanted to figure out in this episode. But before we get started with the interview, I want to say thank you to our sponsor of today's episode, Search Intelligence. Search Intelligence provides genuine digital PR campaigns on your site that get you the highest quality links. We'll tell you more about them a little bit later in this episode. For now, let's get started with the interview. Hey everyone, welcome to the Authority Hacker Podcast. Welcome to Anne Moss, who is joining us on the podcast. Thanks for joining us, Anne. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Yeah.
I have to ask how you're doing, because it's like I'm doing this to Mark every time as well. So it's like I decided I'm going to do this to the guests as well. So you did an interview that was very popular on the Niche Pursuits podcast a year ago, where you described a little bit where your business is at, which at the time was 25 websites, 50 people full-time, 1,000 posts per month, 90 to 95% ad revenue, and almost $200,000 revenue per month. Obviously, a lot has changed since you have recorded this podcast. Like AI came into play. Google decided to just mess around with the SERPs. It's been quite rare that there's been this many changes, especially in the second half of the year, etc. So I wanted to start the interview by saying, first of all, if you want to listen to Anne's interview 1 year ago, go check the Niche Pursuits podcast, but also kind of like catch up, like where you're at right now, what's happening, how are you doing?
Yeah. So obviously a lot has changed. Yeah. We could tell at that point in time already that this was becoming a very risky business model. But I went for a very specific approach, long tail content, no link building. It worked very well for us for 2 to 3 years. We sort of rode the wave, and I optimized my entire operation around that. So creating 1,000 posts per month and having the whole structure, the whole organization was geared toward that. But it was risky, and I knew that because we were becoming like a one-trick pony at that point. And I could easily tell that it won't last forever. That long tail it's got an expiration date on it. Because I think not so much, not AI necessarily. AI did not worry me back then. It was scary when ChatGPT was launched, right? And so that's not the issue. The problem was that more and more people were getting into this game. And if 3 years ago, if I were to find, a juicy long-term query, it was easy to find them with zero competition, or maybe 1 or 2 pages competing over the same long-term query. But then more and more people began to generate pages and decent quality. And by that I mean it satisfied user intent, okay, the search intent. And I think that's all that's needed with this type of information. Like, I don't think that you need for these kind of queries to go above and beyond, get experts, get quotes, all of that. You could, but I don't think it would satisfy the search intent. It won't be any better than not doing so. So anyway, competition was growing. And so what happens, I think today, and the Google algorithm updates, it's like it's a reflection of that. It's the way you're seeing this on the ground, but it's the same problem. Google today has a problem. For every query, they have so many websites answering the exact same query in a way that's good enough for the user that it doesn't matter anymore. Like you have 10 results on the main page, right on the first page of the results, but they could reshuffle these results all day long and it would still be a good enough user experience for users. So we could see that coming back then. And that's when, at the end of 2022, we sort of said, okay, we need to change this because we'll just, run into a wall. And that was when we started changing things. And then when AI came into the game and we started working with AI and then GPT-4, and I was like, okay, actually when Koala AI came out and I could see the quality that we were getting, and said, I could see two things happened that made me like absolutely switch over to AI. One was the fact that, I thought the quality was good enough. And the second one was that we were beginning to catch writers using it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I'm like, why would I pay you $40 for this article when I can get the same thing for a couple of dollars? Instead of, trying to chase after these writers and like say, don't use it and I'll catch you or won't catch you, and try to, figure out if they were using AI, we said, okay, we'll just embrace this and just get the AI content ourselves. When you work with AI, you just don't need as many writers, right? And so we cut down on the number of people, and we now have, I think, 8. We call them content specialists, so they're
Okay.
no longer writers.
I,
Okay, they're
I,
full.
I read AI wranglers on your newsletter, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, AI wranglers. I actually like today I like to call it AI whispering and not
Okay,
wrangling, because I think I've learned that AI responds much better to, if you're kind to it and nice to
I
it, and
see.
not
Plus, if it
and
becomes AGI one day, it doesn't kill us if we be nice to it. So it's always good.
yeah. So that's when we reduced the number of people. And we said, okay, we don't need 50 writers. We can have 7 or 8 content specialists who we taught them how to work with AI, because you have to know how to do this. You can't just go to ChatGPT and say, write me an article, grab that and put it
Yeah, I see.
online. I don't think that's good content. I think that's lousy content in more ways than one. It's not just the style. The style is terrible, but also the content itself could be very problematic, like in terms of structure, also in terms of fact checking. There is a lot going on. So I think you have to have a human in the loop if you want to produce decent content with AI. At the same time, transitioning from that kind of long tail Google traffic into other sources, it took time, longer than I thought. Like, I will probably talk about Facebook traffic. Facebook traffic and Pinterest traffic today make a much larger chunk of our overall traffic. It's taking us time. Like, we had Pinterest before, but Facebook was new to us. And it took probably 4 to 5 months of immersion and of going to people who do well on Facebook and picking their brains and going on calls and saying, hey, help me out here, because I just couldn't make it work at first. It was very frustrating. So we had this trajectory with our Google traffic going down with each update. It's not just the HCU. The
I was gonna ask.
HCU,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Our Google traffic is way down. Like, there's
Okay.
no question about it. By, I would say, 60% or so in Google
Okay.
traffic.
So it's
But
it's a huge hit, but it's not like
huge.
obliviated, basically.
But at the same time, and this is the interesting thing, we cut down on costs
Yeah, that
significantly.
because you have 8 people instead of 50.
Because once we let the writer, we had a very organized structure to produce those 1,000 posts a month, including like not just the writers, but also people who managed the teams of writers. And we just didn't need all of those, people now. So it was a funny thing with revenue going down, but actually profit was not going down.
Interesting.
It actually went up a little. It was very scary. It still is scary. This business is always scary. You never
It's
know what's
not
going to
the
happen
least
tomorrow.
scary time right now, I will say.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's always scary. We were like this one trick pony, right? So we had a system. We had the same writers and same editors and same templates and same styles and same everything across 25 sites. And yet with every update, some sites would get hit and others would not. And why? Like I could not find any. I keep calling, people have names for the Google updates, the HCU, the this and that. I call them the no rhyme, no reason updates. Because every update, it's like this totally arbitrary reshuffle, as far as I can tell. We have big sites, we have small sites, we have older sites, we have new sites, and I cannot point to a pattern and say this update only hit this kind of site and let's fix it. So we actually had sites that increased in traffic. Okay, we still do, even during the HCU. Like some of our sites did well, some of our sites increased in traffic, but I cannot tell you why that was.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Like every time I look at something and I come to some close to a conclusion, I find a counterexample that just breaks all my
Yeah.
ideas. And for example, I think I don't remember exactly the site, but I'll probably put it in the show notes. But I was checking like sites that are built by similar publishers with the same code base, the same editorial teams, etc. Some are up, some are down. And you're
Right,
like,
exactly.
why?
Yeah.
So it's like it's easy to point out one site and be like, oh, it's a shit site. That's why it went down. But
Mhm.
when you pick very similar sites and they go in different trajectories, it's quite difficult sometimes to make sense out of it. So yeah, I know a lot of people tend to ask me like, what do you think of these updates? What changed, etc. And they're very disappointed when I tell you I have no idea, basically.
Yeah. So that's why we changed to the direction. And I think that today what you need to do with niche sites,
Mm.
and niche sites to me are like content websites, okay, not e-commerce and not necessarily affiliate sites, but sites like
You
are,
still do ads mostly, right? It's mostly ad revenue
yeah,
generating.
yeah. We are looking into info products, but
Okay.
I
I
feel
actually
like,
want to talk a little bit about that because I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's we disagree a little bit on the approach here. It's going to be
Oh,
interesting, but we'll talk
we
about this at the
probably,
end, actually.
sure, yeah. It's probably less of a disagreement than you think.
Probably, yeah. It's like, but that's the interesting part. I love disagreeing with people. It's like that's how I
Yeah,
progress, you
sure.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
But like you said, you were producing 1,000 posts per month now. Like, so do you
No,
have less people?
now
You
we
have
don't.
AI?
No, we stopped. We transitioned from that approach. We were
Okay,
at 1,000 posts a month. Now I think we're doing maybe 200 to 300 a month.
okay,
Um, because I we're like moving out of the long tail game,
yeah, okay.
um, almost entirely at this point.
So how did you change the way you pick your content ideas? Like, I guess something has happened here in terms of like, what do I write about? You know?
We're focusing right now on three channels. One is Facebook, the other is Pinterest, and the third is our mailing lists. So we're collecting the idea that I have now for a solid, robust niche site is a site that does not rely on any single source of traffic.
Okay.
I don't regret doing what we did with the long tail content. It's like we rode the wave. There was a great wave in
You made money
2020
when
to
it worked, yeah.
2022, and we like surfed that wave. It was a lot of fun, but the wave ended, and now we need to look into something new. And I think the new niche sites they need to have at least three sources, robust sources of traffic, because everything is an algorithm. And Facebook is
Yeah.
an algorithm, Pinterest is an algorithm, even mailing lists.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they seem like you own the list, but really Gmail owns your list. If Gmail decided to, change their filters, the
There's a lot
newsletter.
of like domain reputation things that may change as well, things like that. Like it's like
Yeah,
email is like quite technical actually when you really dig into it, like the reputation of your IP, what provider you
right,
use to send your emails, the
right.
wording in your emails that triggers different filters. Lots and like we do a lot of email marketing, so it's like we think a lot about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, email is probably one of the most technical uh, content distribution method, basically, I would say. So I agree.
Everything is vulnerable at some
Yeah.
point. We joined the mailing list game kind of late. That's the one thing that I do regret. I should have started, collecting emails much earlier. But I think overall that's like the direction where we headed. We don't need as much content for this approach to work, but
Okay.
we do need different kind of
Can I challenge
content.
you on your vision a little bit here and now because I feel it's the right time. It's like I was gonna bring it up later, but I feel it makes sense. So my personal vision of this is like I agree. I think that we need to start understanding that search is going to just send less traffic to websites. Like it's just something like SGE updates, etc. And most importantly, it probably will be less regular. Like, you know how we just used to have that like flat line of traffic that would come every single day, whatever you do, etc. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, you know, you put any site in Ahrefs now, you see the spikes and the values,
Roller
you know.
coaster. I tweeted about it. I said I think Google should join Six Flags and have a like a
Yeah, it's like it's definitely not that kind of like, I mean, it's still a very good source of traffic, and it's something that a lot of people should put a lot of effort towards, but they also need to understand that it's not as guaranteed as it used to be, at least in the current times. Maybe it's going to stabilize at some point, but maybe not. My feeling is that the best way to diversify your traffic sources is to actually evolve your monetization method, is to go past ads and sell products yourself. Because once you sell products yourself, you can run paid ads directly to your products. You can have affiliates. You can do social media, and you don't even care about the click to website anymore. You just care about building awareness to your, like, if people watch your free social media ads, you can retarget them with ads and then just start selling them your products. You can do everything, basically. You can do all the traffic methods, and they tend to have a much higher ROI than when you just do ads, for example. My personal vision of where this game is going is that the best players, like, people will still start with, I still think you can start with the current business model. Like, you're still making money with ads, you're still making, like, we're still making money with affiliate marketing, etc. Still works. But I think that, like, where previously it was making so much money and it was so easy to just pump content and keep making more money, now there will be a point in the growth of a website where there will be a tipping point where you need to kind of like change gears and go into a different directions and start developing products so that you can diversify your traffic acquisition. And maybe you trade some growth offs. Like, it's harder to develop products than it is to produce more content, but you trade that off for stability, basically. So you trade that off for a certain time for stability and for potential faster growth in the future once you're established in these new traffic channels, basically.
So if we had this interview a week ago, I would say, yeah, absolutely, you're like 100% right, and this is what I'm going to do.
God damn it! I wish we did it a
So,
week ago. Why did I go to Asia?
and I still agree with you. Actually, I still agree with you. A week ago, I was telling one of our team members, and I told her, "Listen, we got to develop info products. That's the future." And you're right. Once you have a good funnel, an optimized way, to actually make those sales, I can absolutely see, how this is the way to go. And I'm still thinking about it. So I'm not like, I'm not arguing with you, because maybe you're
No, it's
absolutely
great.
right. I still, but like what, and I'd love, I'll probably reach out to you afterwards.
Okay. My feeling is, like, I think a lot of people are holding on to monetization methods that have historically performed extremely well, and potentially, like, the amount of effort against the amount of reward you are getting for a long time for just affiliate, etc. It's been great. It's been too good almost. It was it was almost unbalanced,
It was too easy, right?
And now things are being rebalanced, basically. Like, think about like a YouTuber that gets 100,000 views per video, still doesn't make that much money, for example. Like, just put yourself against other content creators, for example.
I absolutely agree with you. I think what happened I think it was like this perfect storm of the COVID lockdowns and, other factors that just converge to make this like a crazy profitable business for a while.
And it's been
And
for a long time.
and you're right, it's changing. It's in some ways it's changing to where it should be. And I'm very grateful, like I said, for having ridden that wave, because that allows me today to have a much better financial buffer where I can, I have room to maneuver and figure out new things to do.
Again, I don't think it's over. We still have case studies of people starting recently getting job replacement. We had like one last week in the test group, for example, that just like started making like 3K a month, like from a site that just started a few months ago. So it still happens, but it's definitely harder and more volatile than it used to be, I think.
Right.
So it's like, I still think people can build a bit of a war chest and experience building sites that way, but there will be a tipping point. And when you reach a certain point, I think when you reach 5 figures a month or something, like, for a lot of people, it's time to start thinking, how do I make this a real business, and so that I can diversify my traffic sources. But I want to talk about how you generate traffic with Facebook, because you've talked about generating traffic from other sources. And I think that's what this podcast needs to be about. Like, a lot of people are trying to build more, like, essentially more stable businesses. They understand Google is choppy right now. And so before this podcast, I actually asked you to send me some of the Facebook pages that you're working on. It's like I try to make an effort for this podcast. Not that I don't believe you. It's just like I make an effort for this podcast to actually look into people's things, because first of all, it allows me to ask better questions. It allows the audience to know that, well, it's been kind of like fact check and it's real, basically. So you send me some of the examples. We're not going to reveal the niches. We're not going to reveal the page. And I was wondering, like, why you decided to go after Facebook. Like, it's like now when I talk to my mom about Facebook, she's not even using it anymore. Like, it's like I don't even know who's using Facebook anymore. Like, why Facebook?
I actually talked to people like on forums and stuff, and there were people who were doing very well with Facebook, and I liked the simplicity of the model where it's, and again, Facebook, it's like Google, like there are many ways to get traffic from Facebook, right? But what I'm doing is a very specific model where you set up a page. It's a pay to play model. You have to pay for the likes and you have to buy the likes, but then, which I liked because it means there's less competition than in, on Google. Then you start, offering the audience of that page your content and trying, and the challenge here is to get them to click. And now from these people, what I've learned is that there is a lot of traffic on Facebook, and there's also like objective data. Facebook still is
Yeah,
much
it's still a
bigger
huge social network. Yeah.
Pinterest than Twitter, than everything. Facebook is huge. So I knew the traffic, was there for some people. The question was, how do I get into this game? How do I get past that learning curve? That was the
So how
big
did it
challenge.
go? How did you get started, and how's it going now?
So now it's going great. Like, especially this morning, I woke up and seeing like a single post generate over $4,000 in a single
Wow,
day.
very nice.
We had our highest day ever this morning. I was telling my husband this was perfect just for the for the podcast.
Should come often.
Yeah. So, but at the beginning, it was not that. At the beginning, we had the pages. I was building pages, paying for likes. And it was a lot of people, when they look at this model, and a lot of people told me, like, this isn't working anymore. Don't do this. This is like, it used to work, but now it's not. But I said, okay, but I know people, who make it work. So I want to try. And so you have like two elements here. First is you buy the likes for the page. And then a lot of people struggle there. Like, how do I get the cost per like down?
Need to add optimization. Yeah.
Right. So I managed to figure that one out fairly quickly and get it down to the 7 to 8 cents per page like
Are
range.
these like US people
Yeah,
or
US only. US
Okay,
only.
okay. I was gonna ask because you can get Pakistan likes for very
Oh,
cheap if you
sure.
want.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I'm going, like, because I monetize with display ads with Mediabuying and Raptive, I need US audiences. So just strictly 100% US audience. And something that Alik Hasib told me from Strivio, and he, I went on a call with him, and he said, don't worry about the price per like. It doesn't matter. If you get this to work, then it'll be worth it even to pay 20 cents per like. And that's really like, it helped me reduce the amount of focus on that part of the deal, but still also figure out how to do it for relatively low cost. So I can get like 10,000 page likes for around $700-800, under 1,000
Okay.
usually. And then the big challenge was how to get people to click from the Facebook page back to our site.
Especially
Because
these days.
engagement was easy. Getting people to like your posts and share them, in some niches at least, is very, very easy. So I have a website about cats, and I had 3 Facebook pages about cats. And I said, okay, cats is easy, right? Everybody loves cats. The internet is about cats. Let's try this. And indeed, it was very easy to get, it still is very easy to get engagement on those pages. Give people a picture of a cute kitten, and that's it, basically. Like, they'll share,
Is that the
like,
secret?
comment. Yeah, they'll go crazy. Like, and I found that there was another revelation. What happens with Facebook, unlike with our regular websites, you get the feedback like almost immediately, right?
Fun,
People
right?
write to tell you. Yeah, it is. And so I discovered that, like, if you used AI generated cats using Midjourney, you could get to these images that are really sort of strike at people, there. And I was amazed to see how, I'll tell you a little story. You can edit it out if you like,
No,
but
no, we want it.
I once created a post on one of our sites about cats and Star Wars. It was for Star Wars Day. And so I created images of cats and, cats as Star Wars figures. Obviously, to me, like 100% AI generated content, right? I mean, obviously, you don't really have cats fighting with, saber
I
lights
mean,
or whatnot.
laser sabers don't exist already, so
Yeah.
imagine
And
cats with them.
right. And so, like, to me, this was like 100% AI content. Like, how could you even ever get confused? And there were images of like cats as the Wookiees, right?
Hmm.
In Star
Yeah,
Wars,
yeah.
like wearing these hoodies and looking really, really cute. And it was one image when I prompted for Jabba the cat. And so it generated this cat, but with a Jabba the Hutt skin, no fur, and like the whole. But and I never meant to upload that to the page, like to show people, because to me it was, I didn't. But one of our VAs, she managed the page, helped me with the page at the time. She found these images. She didn't even think twice. She just took them. She posted them to the page with some blurb about Star Wars. And people were like, "What breed of cat is this? What kind of cat? What like, like you know?" So the point is that getting engagement on Facebook is easy,
But traffic.
relatively easy. But those pages failed because they never drove traffic back to the
Hmm.
site. And we tried everything with all kinds of, like, we tried sharing the links directly, we tried adding images, we tried all kinds of things, and just couldn't make it work with cats.
And just want to add, this is where the info product strategy would work really well, because you can retarget people who engage with these posts. So you could just farm engagement on your pages, and then people who engage with content, you can show them sales ads, and they're fairly affordable. And then that's why social media becomes 10 times easier when you have products, because you don't even care about site traffic to site anymore. You just care about engagement of the right people, so that maybe not funny cat pictures, but cat care pictures, etc. Things that like actually product buyers would actually interact
Right.
with.
Yeah.
So it's the power of like having something to sell to people, basically.
Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna pester you
But
in
I'm not gonna cut. I'm sorry I cut the story. It just felt like an interjection to give some value. But go ahead, keep
Well,
going.
there's actually another way to monetize these pages, because soon enough, Facebook offered me to get these page
Uh,
bonuses.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it took me like 3 months just to connect the bank account, because it's not like enough money to make me go do something about it. It's like a few $100s a month. But, for some people, that may be a viable kind of strategy. If what you're looking to do is like get a couple of thousand of dollars a month, then Facebook engagement kind of based strategy could work.
Okay.
But anyway, so we just eventually tried other niches, and that was also something that I learned, that the niche really matters on Facebook. I'm sure some people are great at driving traffic in the cat niche, for example, from Facebook. And if anyone is like sitting there and listening and saying, "Hey, it's easy," then please, by all means, I'd love to know how. It's just that I couldn't figure it out. But in other niches, it did work. And what we did was essentially, I think it's the same system, maybe even in business in general, but definitely in web publishing, is like trying things out in all directions until something clicks, something just, you get something to work, and then you double down on that and you start digging deeper. I think I read somewhere, somebody described it like archaeology, where you have an area, that there's, skeletons buried in that area, and you
You
have no
dig
idea where.
randomly.
Yeah, so you dig randomly in multiple places, but when you hit something, then you focus your efforts on that area until you uncover the whole thing. It doesn't mean that you should stop trying elsewhere, but just now you have your direction. So this is essentially what we've done.
So what was the actual hit? Like, what's the formula of a post that generated good traffic to your site? But before you reply, let's just have a quick word about our sponsor of today's episode, Search Intelligence.
This campaign got us big links in websites such as Lifehacker, Wales Online, Daily Record, and about 20 other news websites. Let me show you how we've done it. We knew that people will be flying a lot this summer, and we knew that journalists will be writing about this topic a lot. So, on behalf of our client, we put together a nice guide about how to fall asleep on the plane. Then we use Muckrack to find journalists who write about travel. Then we put our advice in a nice email and send the tips to the journalists. Within just a few days, the links started landing, securing our client natural placements in really big websites, just like this, and this. This is a great example about how you can leverage seasonal trends to earn links to a website. Anticipate what journalists want to write about at all times and give them the stories that they need. They will reward you with some great, juicy links. I hope this is helpful.
Thanks again to the sponsor of today's episode, Search Intelligence. If you need a partner to help you grow your link profile using high-quality PR campaign, then head over to searchintelligence.co.uk. And now, back to the interview. So, Anne, before the break, we were talking about what the formula was that you got to actually get people to engage with your Facebook posts and generate traffic to your site.
So what I found out was that we needed to go for things that trigger some kind of an emotional response in people and yet also intrigue them. And so there is an added benefit for them in clicking through to the page. So you hit on something that's on their minds. They didn't know up until that point. That was, maybe they didn't even know it was an issue. Unlike Google traffic. With Google traffic, people come up with a question, they go to Google, they look it up, right? With Facebook traffic, they're just scrolling on their phones, bored. And now you bring up a topic. It needs to be close to their hearts. So this is where your niche comes into play. And now you need to figure out what is it about their passion or their interest that would make them feel a little bit worried, concerned, or maybe hopeful, but you need to wrap it up so it intrigues them and you're not giving them the answer in the title. So what works often, and again, this is even more of a roller coaster than Google. So the same kind of post even can sometimes work, sometimes it doesn't work. It's a hit and miss, and it's a numbers game. But what often works is like get an image in there, and in the image have arrows or X's or something, that you point out to something and you want to deliver eventually, right? So your content, your post on your site will actually cover that. So you're not just, randomly throwing arrows in an image, but show them something that, this is why they're on your page, point at something in the image and tell them, this could be a big problem for you. And then you get them to click through and, find out what that problem may be.
So it's basically the classic clickbait, basically, where you just have this image, this photo is like a red arrow is like this. And then you just say like, if you ignore this, you're in big trouble. Or if you, something like this.
In a sense, yeah, but we try to avoid like total clickbaits for two reasons.
Okay.
First, because these people, we want to re-engage them in the future. It cost me a lot of money to get that person to like the page. So I don't want them to to be turned off by what they find out. So we need to balance that. We usually do say what the post is about. We don't just send them to a blind link with something,
Okay.
We do say like something, this is the problem. It could be a problem with whatever your item is, and so you need to click through and figure out this thing, and they end up clicking through. Yeah, also all of it is about the intrigue, the mistake.
Yeah.
But I'll tell them what the topic is about. Like I'll tell them what it is about. So if they're totally uninterested in this topic, then they won't click through, and that's okay. But the ones who do click through, I need to deliver right on this promise. My content needs to be good enough to cover that.
Well, this is practice for email marketing because it works exactly the same way. You need to do that in your subject line, and then you need to actually deliver in your email. And in your email, you need to do the same thing so people click on your link, basically. So it's like it's good because it's like a lot of SEOs tend to suck at direct response marketing and sales copy, etc. And this is like basically like this is it, and it's like you need to actually not convince a robot, you need to convince people now, which is a very different game. But one thing I saw in your post is that you almost never use link posts. You know, like when there's this big box with a link, you never use that. You tend to put like an image and then the link is inside the post itself. Why do you do that?
Oh, you're talking about like the affiliate links to Amazon.
No, I'm talking about the fact that, you know, when you share a link, there's a preview of the link usually below. And then you could put an image there, right? You could use the OG social tags and put an image there if you wanted, but you don't do that. You actually share a native image to the social network and your link is inside the post, basically. Is that for distribution purposes? Because links tend to have very low distribution?
Right. Yeah. The reach numbers are lower when you share links. Doesn't mean that links don't work necessarily. They do work and they're much easier, right, to share because you already have your link. It's faster. But we found that usually the posts with the image, they have like they can get reach in the millions.
Okay.
Like the post that worked today, the last one I looked today at the stats, it had over 5 million in reach. And so that, you know, it's a numbers game, right? The more reach you have, even with a lower CTR, you're still getting more traffic.
Exactly. It depends. Sometimes you get lower reach with the links, but because the CTR is so much higher, you actually tend to get good traffic as well.
Right. So you need to balance it out. We do share a mix, like we also share links, but yeah, the most successful posts are the ones that go viral are the ones with images.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, for example, on Twitter, for example, we share the podcast. We never put the podcast in the first link. The first tweet, we actually attach it under because otherwise it gets no reach. So the first tweet carries the subtweet with the link, so that all social platforms tend to not like posts with links. Like a link is a negative distribution factor. Do you use AI to craft the posts? Like at this point, now you could train a GPT, right?
Yeah. I already have 8 GPTs that I...
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's funny because, you know, when I was preparing the podcast and I was looking at your page, I actually made one as well. I was like, oh, what if I made a GPT that actually could do this and do the images, etc. It's like, the problem is the inconsistency, right? It's like usually I build my AI stuff in Zapier. So it's like I actually don't interact with it. I just pre-prompt everything. And it's just like I put like something in Notion and it just does everything. It queues it on Buffer. It does everything. I don't have to think about it. But it needs to be fairly consistent for that. And it's like the output was still like it would need a human to interact with it, which I like a little bit less.
So I am addicted to AI. Like I
have a section for it, don't worry.
I actually started my own pet project, a website and a YouTube channel about AI.
Nice.
Yeah, so I don't know where it'll go, if it even interests people, because this is entirely like a passion project just because I am obsessed with AI. Everything AI, like not
okay,
just
so I guess you're crafting the post with AI. But the images are not AI.
Actually, that's the thing. On that specific blog, I don't use AI for writing.
That's the thing. So it's like that. The thing is like when you're closer to the niche, you tend to criticize AI content a lot more as well. And it's like
I think it depends what you're trying to achieve. I think
guess
it's great for some purposes if you know how to use it correctly. And what I'm learning about AI is that it is not a robot in that sense of the word. It's not conscious.
What is it?
I know exactly what I'm not getting confused. It's not conscious. It's not self. All of that. That's not the thing. The thing is that when you communicate with ChatGPT, you will get the best results if you treat it like a human being. And that's because it's part of its training. That's it tries to replicate responses that it's seen in dialogues between humans. And so when people are nicer to each other, they collaborate. You'll get someone to collaborate with you when you're nice to them, or sometimes when you're not. Sometimes, right, when you can get very angry,
or you have a gun,
right? But they say you can. How's the saying goes? Like you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Right. So it's usually true for AI as well. Now you can actually pressure AI when you go with the negative, with threats. You can threaten an AI. But the more you use phrases like things, I don't know if you know, like it's a very famous kind of thing that AI does better in mathematics when it's told to do this, take a deep breath. That's like That was the best prompt when researchers tested AI. The best prompt to improve its functions, like in mathematics, was to take a deep breath. And obviously, it cannot breathe, right? So that's not the thing. But the thing is, like in all the dialogues that it's seen, when people were told to take a deep breath, that's when they slow down and they
And
do
you do a
something
better
step
job.
by
So
step.
it takes that data set and it does a better job, basically.
And so that's how it works, and which I think is fascinating.
It's
But
very
it means, yeah, that's why I'm saying AI whispering now, because you have to be an AI
interesting. So you have to be
whisperer.
nice.
You have to be nice, and you have to be aware. By the way, even if you're nice, if you're too nice, there is something called the Waluigi effect in AI. And that's when a AI will give you the opposite results of what you want, what you're trying to get. And it can often happen if you're too nice to the AI.
The Waluigi effect. So it's like the Mario reference. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's like the evil twin, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
like it's fascinating. Like I was reading studies
But
about it.
if you love AI so much, why do you not use AI images in your Facebook posts?
We do
I
sometimes use
saw a
AI.
few, but most of them are real images, right?
It really depends what you're trying to get. Like if for example, if it's the travel niche and you need an image that would be off that place, then you cannot get away with an image
So
from
where do you
AI.
get
You
the
can
images
never.
then, if they're
Oh,
not
just
AI?
Shutterstock. They're all
Okay, so
paid.
they're just stock images,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. We have endless accounts of Shutterstock images.
Yeah, the deposit
And
images, right? The ones from
as
AppSimo as well.
well, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
a lot of people have that. Um,
Right.
in terms of RPM, how does Facebook traffic compare to Google traffic?
It's actually usually better.
Okay.
RPM is higher for Facebook. Depending on the niche, in some niches we get better RPM from Pinterest traffic, but both Pinterest and Facebook are usually higher than Google traffic in terms
Okay.
of RPM.
I guess that that helps with like potentially. I guess the traffic is very spiky, right? You get a post that takes off, you
Yeah,
make a lot of money, and then it kind of like flats for a while, and it just spikes again. That's what I saw basically. Like most posts did not get a ton of engagement, and once in a while you get like a post that just goes crazy, and I
right.
guess you're getting a bunch of traffic there. So I guess it's even more irregular than Google traffic in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's absolutely so. But because it's a numbers game, it's a roller coaster. But if you look at it like in a monthly view, it's reliable.
I see. Like you manage to get a certain number of hits per month, so that you don't know when they happen, you don't know what post they will happen on, but it kind of happens.
Right.
One thing I forgot to ask on the getting the likes to the page is that you mentioned doing ads, obviously, but how do you do your targeting? How do you like? Do you just do interests, or do you just are you very broad, or
The ad copy is very simple. I can share it because everybody, I think, uses the
like
same
if you like
very
cats,
basic.
like this page or something? Like
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah. If
yeah,
you
I use this
love
one.
pets, like this page, everybody does the same thing. I have tried other, formats, but this really did work best. And then it's a question for the targeting. I go US only over 21, just because this is more valuable in terms, as an audience. It will later convert to higher RPMs. I don't want kids because kids don't have money.
Yeah.
So over 21 in the US, and then just based on the closest kind of topic that I can find in the Facebook interests.
So you're like, if it's cats, you're just gonna pick cats, pets, and things like that. You're
Yeah.
gonna go quite broad, I guess, so that you can reduce your
Well,
cost.
cats is very broad, but sometimes you create a page that it's more focused, and then you cannot find that
Yeah,
specific
yeah. Okay.
topic, and then you go for the closest, nearest thing that you can find.
Okay. So it's just generic interests plus
Yeah, and I think the key with these ads is the images.
yeah, yeah.
So same audience, same like prompt, but then the images can really, and this is where whenever I start a new page in a new niche, I just don't know. I just try everything. Like I try all kinds of images and I see what works best. I turn off the ads that don't work as well, and then sort of refine it. And it's a survival of the fittest kind of thing
Yeah.
where like
Okay.
a few days later I'll add more images and try to just get to the ones that
So you
actually
launch
resonate.
20, you cut 16 3 days later, and then there's the last four that battle for a week, and then you just keep the one or two that wins, basically. How much traffic can I like? How much traffic do you generate from these pages? Like we haven't really talked numbers, but like an average page, I have, let's say, 50,000 likes to a consumer niche, like what can I expect?
I don't know about consumer niches very much because I don't do
I mean,
affiliate.
cats or something like that or whatever, like
Oh, okay.
something.
So first of all, I have to say I don't know. I don't know if there is a general number. I know that some of our niches did not work out well, and others worked very well. I think you need to sort of focus your effort, like make sure it's more focused. Like the more focused niches is probably in at least in my experience, it's just better. But I don't invest in the likes too much. Like I right now, what I do is I cap it at 10,000 likes. 10,000 likes, which is under $1,000. It's a small investment, and so I can test at that point if it, if it clicks, if people are engaged, if I find the right kind of content that makes them click through, then I can always add a little more. But also, what happens is that the pages begin to grow organically.
Yeah.
So we have pages now with 50 to 60,000 page views, and of these, maybe the initial 20,000 were paid. The rest are organic. And I think it may actually affect like the whole thing. So I wouldn't rush out to go and buy, like, let's say you have a budget of $10,000, doesn't mean that it's a good idea to go out there and buy 100,000 likes, because I'm not sure these would be as engaged as
They're
the
not the
ones that
best,
you
yeah.
know organically. In that respect, it takes some time. But I can tell you that our most successful pages, they're at around 50,000 likes. That's enough to generate around between 100 to 200,000 sessions or page views a month.
Oh, that's quite a lot. Okay, that's more than expected, actually. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it kind of works like all social platforms, right? You get initial engagement from your fans, but if there is a high engagement on the post, Facebook gonna distribute it beyond your fan base. And so not only can that generate more traffic to your site, but that also generates likes to your page. That increases the size of your page because there's a little like button usually next to
Right.
the post when they see it organically. And so like the people who choose to follow you because they like your content, they tend to be more active and engaged than the people you get through ads because you went to get them, basically.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
it's almost like a better strategy, I would say. Probably, I don't have as much experience as you, but I have experience on social media to just get initial followers to get started and get some engagement and earn the rest of the followers because they actually will have higher engagement rate, and higher engagement rate leads to higher distribution of your content on these platforms. So it's almost like money will get you so far. Eventually, you actually need to
Yes.
make good content, right?
Yes. Yeah. You want to get to that snowball effect where you have a good match between your content and the audience, and then from there it sort of grows, keeps growing.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's pretty good, like 100, 200,000 visits per month from a good Facebook page. Obviously, they don't all work out, as you said,
yeah.
and a higher RPM than what Google makes on average. Again, like we can't say it's going to be the case for everyone, but like from experience, from reference experience, that's what happens. You mentioned that you promote these kind of like questions that you answer in terms of links, etc. Have you ever tried to go in and make like clickbaity content? Like, let's say you have a page about cats, you'd make like, here's the cats, here's the photos of Taylor Swift's cat, or something, and
Yeah.
then, but don't you think you'd actually get way more distribution or something?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not like a clickbaity kind of person. Like I said, I'm a very bad salesperson and marketer. It's just I'm first and foremost a publisher.
Fair enough. I mean, look, you're the one getting 100 to 200,000 views per month on Facebook, not me. So I'm just sharing, like, you run a lot of like digital PR stuff, etc. So, for example, we're running a digital PR campaign right now on Authority Hacker. And the campaign is, what are the most Google celebrities of 2023, basically? And it's like, we're just surfing on all the celebrity names, etc. And we're getting a bunch of links from that, for example. And Google, like, the thing as well is this kind of content has a place in Google Discover now, for example.
Yeah.
Which I think would be a really, really strong combo for you to make this kind of content that works well on your Facebook page. And on top of that, try to play on Discover with a high click-through rate. Which
I have tried or am
yeah,
trying.
it's a Google Discover is like also a bit of a black box. What's worked for us is clickbaity stuff like that quite often, or like stuff that people find a direct benefit from. like amounts of money, things like that, basically. Is there any, like, does the algo on Facebook change like it changes on Google? Like, is it a similar experience where it's like one day things work and the next day things don't work anymore? Have you noticed any of that? Are you worried about it?
So I haven't noticed it yet. I am worried about it. I think that's like the biggest risk factor here. So there are two things here that are risky. One is that your page can get banned. People reported it's one reason not to go into the very sensational stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
So the way I see it is that, first of all, my investment per page is low. Okay, like if I put only up to $1,000, then worst case scenario, if I'm losing a page, it's very sad because I'm losing a lot of traffic, but I didn't really lose a lot of money and I can go and create a new page. Whereas with the algorithm changes are definitely more of a risk. Like if tomorrow Facebook decides that, I don't know, they don't want to, they're limiting reach even more, then we would have a problem. But that's where I think where diversification comes into place. That's where I don't want to rely on Facebook traffic alone or on Google. These sites also, by the way, Google likes them. Like we're getting traffic from Google. So it's a mix of traffic. And we're also building Pinterest for those sites. So that's like my goal in 2024. Actually focus on the sites that are currently successful on Facebook. Let's push them more on Pinterest. They're already getting the Google traffic. Let's try and create this like trilateral kind of setup.
If one drops, it's okay, basically.
Yeah. And they also have mailing lists, and the mailing lists are, this is another interesting thing, by the way, because you mentioned it, and it's true. There is a correlation between what works on Facebook and what works on mailing lists. And so what happens is that the people who subscribe and they come from Facebook, they also tend to engage with our mailing lists. And so we're getting much better results, much better click-through rates and open rates on the emails as well. So that's the idea. Like let's build this kind of ecosystem for a site where it has, I also want to try YouTube for those sites, just very simple kind of.
Are you going to do like faceless AI videos, or are you going to actually become a
YouTuber? AI or even slideshows. Like I have done it before, and it was amazing to see like a simple slideshow with the right kind of title and topic. It just worked. Like you could get tens of thousands of views. And since the idea here isn't to monetize YouTube so much as to just create this kind of holistic experience where I can send the same people to my multiple channels and say, hey, you're on our, in the mailing list, say, okay, check out this video and check out that and check out. So some people call it branding, right? Because eventually what you're trying to do is keep, when you talk about keeping them in the ecosystem, is they'll know the name of the site. So they'll just hop around and feel comfortable with the various channels of engagement. But I don't think that's really branding. I think it's more of a traffic game. I mean, I think to me, at least, branding is different. I have one site where I think we created a brand, like the kind of brand that people actually go on Google and search for the name of the site.
Like a lot of people in Shanghai SEO talked about brand, and I was like, a brand lives in the head of people. Like,
right.
It's like, it's not about what you're doing, it's about how people feel about you.
Right, exactly. You want to have at least some people who connect to your site, like who are looking actively for the site as an entity, not just as a source for something. And that's extremely difficult to achieve, and it takes a lot of time. So that's where I'm like, this isn't branding, but I do think that what we're trying to do now is to sort of create an overall stable site where, even if Facebook has an algorithm change, hopefully it doesn't happen on the same day that Google and Pinterest both have algorithm updates. And then we're fine. Like if something were to happen and we were to lose the Facebook traffic or the Pinterest traffic or the Google traffic, we have enough traffic and revenue to go ahead and figure out, okay, where are we going next? Maybe we do something else. And I actually created like a list of potential site traffic sources, like, because people are getting traffic from so many places. Some people get it from Reddit, from Quora, from Flipboard, if I may go on a tangent just a little bit, the way I see it, I'm a publisher. Okay. All of these things, like I never created content for Google. Google is all about, their search liaison is all about don't create content for Google. And I'm like, I never created content for Google. I couldn't care. I mean, I care about getting the traffic from Google, but Google is not the audience. Google is the platform. Google is the pipe that gets me the traffic. And yeah, it's a massive pipe, right? Like over the last decade, it's become huge. It's like I'm a publisher, I'm creating a magazine, and now Google is a newsstand. And I need the owner of the newsstand to like my magazine enough to put it up on display. If it's not on display, nobody would ever be able to read my magazine. In order to get that, I have to make a great cover, right, for the magazine that the owner of the newsstand will like enough to get,
Tell me what
to
to make
go
sales.
with my thought. But if that newsstand, Google, right now, and there are a lot of problems with that newsstand right now,
Oh,
in my
yeah, there
opinion.
is.
It's not like one of the problems is that the newsstand here also became an advertising network that monetizes the magazines, right? That's like a problem. But if it doesn't like my magazines, there are other newsstands in town. I don't have to go. And ideally, I want to my site to be able to. I want to be able to promote it on multiple newsstands in multiple locations, and then I'm much more. I'm much safer. Even if Google's newsstand is so immense and amazing, and it's got the best location, it's in the middle of the train station, right? And everybody goes by it. Okay, but still, I don't want to be dependent on that very capricious newsstand owner.
Yeah, and they do what they want because they have so much power, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, too much, too much.
Do you want to talk about AI content? Because that's another venture that you went on to this year, where obviously you mentioned that you reduced your staff, you focused on AI, etc. How's that working? Like, obviously, I think it's time now. Like, you've started, like, as you said, in April or something. Like, how do you feel about that transition so far?
I like it because it reduces the cost a lot, and I don't see much of a difference in terms of its success in rankings because we pretty much maintain the same standard for the AI content versus the previously human written
You have
content.
still an
The
editing
standard,
process that stays the
yeah,
same.
well, pretty much the same, yeah. So because of that, I can usually tell AI content apart from human content. And we really strive to sort of take out that ChatGPT voice out of the content just because it's becoming repetitive
Yeah.
across the internet. So that's one thing to do. And then the other thing is to really fact check everything because I mean, GPT-4 is better than any other model in that respect, but it can still hallucinate or just give you an answer that is not accurate enough for what we need. Which isn't to say that our content is stellar, and it wasn't stellar before AI. That's the point. Because I don't think content needs to be stellar to succeed, because it just needs to be good enough for the user's needs. Like I'm focusing on the person who reads this. They have a problem. Has my content sufficiently solved their problem? And their problem could be boredom. It doesn't have to be like something that they need to fix. But even if they got to my content from Facebook because they're bored and they're doom scrolling, have I entertained them? Have I provided them with the experience that makes them satisfied?
Don't you think that's what Google's going after? Good enough content right now?
I don't know what Google is going after. I think my personal theory is that Google is currently, and that's just my opinion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the internet is too big. I think having to crawl, index, and rank everything is nearly impossible.
It's difficult.
And I think Google engineers are very smart people. And if the internet had like 100 million pages, they would probably do a wonderful job at ranking them. Really, I do really believe that. But the internet has become far much larger than that. It's like huge, and there comes a limit. I know that because I got a son who's that's what he's doing his PhD in, like about algorithms and stuff. And there comes a limit. Algorithms have a limit in the way they process huge amount of content. And this is like the struggle in computer science. Like, how do we make our algorithms better to encompass? And so I think that's my theory that maybe Google is like really having difficulties And you can see that also in the documents that come out in the antitrust trial,
Yeah.
where they say it's just, we cannot read the documents. And I don't
Just use the
think
data.
they don't mean that they can't read a document and understand it well. They can do that. ChatGPT can do that. Obviously, Google's AI should be able to do that. That's not the thing. The thing is, we cannot do this to the scale that is needed to do that on the internet. I don't think they care about AI content in that respect, but they do care about the quality of the content, and they're sort of stuck. They can't really assess. And I think this is why they sort of default to user generated content right now, and to very, very, very strong brands, journalistic brands or real businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, okay, we can't determine it in any other way. So let's just assume that these would be better sources. And I think that's a mistake in terms of the user experience, like the people who actually browse the internet, because these people, what they don't need a poorly written page by a business, and they don't need a poorly written page on Reddit, on Quora. They do need web publishers like us to get that content. And that's what we've been doing for years, and sort of translate that into something that's easier to consume on the internet. That's the way I see my job. Like my job, I'm not an expert on many things, but my job as a publisher is to do the legwork, do the research, and get people a much better answer in the terms that it's easier for them to read online on a page, like on a screen, usually on their phone. That's very different from being a print magazine. I need, like, my profession as a web publisher is to figure out how to package information the right way for people to consume it online. And to me, that's like an expertise. That's a profession. And that's something that a plumber cannot do. They have a plumbing website because they want to, promote their plumbing business. That does not mean that they know how to write for,
But
the answer
are
online.
you really doing this when you're using AI content? Is your expertise shining through when you're using AI content?
Yeah, I think so. Because this is where it comes to, like, I don't do one-click AI content. I do AI content that is like,
What's your process? Let's just talk about your process. Is gonna help us understand how it works. Because you've been promoting Koala a lot, and they're
Yeah.
pretty much a one-click AI writer. Although
No,
on
no,
the
no,
outline and on the prompts, you have a lot of control.
Not only that, I talked to Connor, who made Koala, and I like, in terms of the approach, and it's definitely my approach, is that Koala is the first draft. It is not the finished product. It is not a good one-click, because there is no such thing as a single-click good AI content creator. So Koala provides us with a very robust draft. And all of the features there, the fact that it does go online, it researches online, it references things, and you can tell it also what kinds of sites you want it to check and reference. And that's what we do. And for some topics, it's not relevant to each and every topic, but on some topics, for example, our content specialists know to tell Koala, check scientific sources, check government sites, check, like, go for very authoritative sources. It doesn't always work. It's not always needed. But this is the skill. This is the skill that they have as a content specialist, to say, this topic, I'm going to go with this kind of instructions and prompts for Koala. For something else, I'll go with something with a different setup. And then I'm getting my first draft. This is not the final post. This is not what gets published. And so the rest of the process, once they have their first draft, is usually, it revolves around first, like, an initial round of editing, because Koala tends to have repetition.
Yeah.
Again, depending on the topic, okay, because Koala sort of shoots for a certain word count. And depending on
sections independently as well, so it doesn't know what it wrote before and after.
Yes. Again, it depends, right? Depends on topics. We usually also redo the introductions almost completely.
Yeah.
And then they also know to look for those ChatGPT phrases. Like, they're not, we try not to have "let's dive in" and all of these, recognizable tropes almost by ChatGPT. So they know to look for those. And then they also need to think about things like images. So this is also something that the content specialists need to.
I just want to rewind a bit on the process. So you have a keyword like cats, I don't know, cats games in apartments. Let's just say that. What's the process?
So again, it depends on the type of the query, okay, or the title, if you like. And like I said, we're sort of moving away from questions.
Okay. So
From
this would be a list, right? Like cat games in apartments. It's like maybe like games to get a cat can play in an apartment would be like 10 games you can
right,
play with
that
your
would
cat
be
in
a
your
listicle.
apartment, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So with a listicle, we would probably actually not use Koala. With a listicle, we would use ChatGPT.
Okay.
Koala is better tuned for those long tail kind of questions. If it's a listicle, though, I'm actually toying with the idea of creating a GPT for listicles, but it just the content specialists would just go to ChatGPT. We have multiple ChatGPT plus accounts. They only work with GPT-4, and then there is like it's sort of like a structured process where they start with like a general overview and brainstorming, and then they build the items on the list together, and then they sort of elaborate on each one. It doesn't take too long to do
Okay.
that.
So they still like collaborate. They don't just say, write me a list of, write me a
Oh yeah,
blog.
yeah, for sure. It's never one click. AI is
Okay.
not in its current form.
Good.
It's not a very good one click content writer.
I think people need to hear that. It's like I think it's definitely very useful, and it's a productivity booster. Like we
Mhm.
have an AI blueprint as well, right? We have a course on that. It's like I'm just using the raw API basically in Google Docs, and it's like we spend a lot of time on outlining. We use AI to help outlining as well, but it's like outline, then have the AI generate the first outline based on the top results, then edit the outline yourself, add your personal experience inside the outline, then have the AI write, but then also have the AI do the first round of editing. So it actually has recursive prompts where it thinks about its own answer
Mhm.
and fixes it, and then human editing, basically. So it's like people, when we released that, they imagined that we had some magical formula that would give people like a one-click AI writing thing. And I'm like, nah, it's maybe a 50% productivity boost, something like this. Like it's good. It's amazing to get 50% productivity boost.
Yeah, something
But it's
minimum.
not
I
a
would
one
say
click.
with AI, it's 1 to 2 hours to
Yeah.
create an article, whereas before it was 4 to 5.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair, and it's like, and that's what it is right now, and it's like people who try to make it something else, they tend to release very low quality content, in my
I
opinion,
agree.
and I call it spam.
I agree.
uh,
I agree with you. Yeah, it's very easy, right, to automate everything,
it's
connect
tempting
with
as
the
well.
API, and just get 500 articles out there. But they're low quality content. It's not good enough, I think, to
I think it
satisfy.
can be done if you combine it with maybe proprietary data and you make like very specific queries, like what is inside, what ingredients are inside minestrone soup, for example. I don't know. It's like you find the
The thing
data.
is, I think even one-click content can rank, and people do
Yeah,
well with that. Like I'm
but
as a
not forever.
publisher, as a I don't know. So far, so good. It's
Okay.
just that for me as a publisher, it's also like a bit of I don't know. I don't want to use big words, but it is, I think, an ethical problem. Um, I do see, like I said, like okay, I'm a web publisher. I'm not a web spammer. Spammers make money too, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
they
not.
do. And it's not illegal as well. They can publish anything they want on their site. If Google decides to index it, it's Google's problem.
Yeah, right, right. That's like these are things that I now think about a lot because I know we may mention it later on, but I'm looking into the whole Web Publishers
Oh,
Association
cool.
initiative,
Yeah,
and it's something that's like on my mind. Like I think as publishers, we also have responsibilities, and we also have a role. Like the internet is a big thing. I think we have a role in the internet, and I think we need to like be respectful of that and
yeah.
that's my personal take on it.
Yeah, but it's also Google's job. Like it's like if Google rewards this, people are gonna do this more, and it's not
I
illegal to
agree.
do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like
for
it's
sure.
on Google to get better. Honestly, I think there's a lot on their shoulders right now, and they're not necessarily doing the best job either. The problem as well is like you're talking about like, oh, you want to engage people, etc. But for years they have encouraged samey content. Basically, so you wanted to rank, you had to write the same page again and again. And now they
Hmm.
come with their update, and they're like, guys, this is shit content. What are you doing with your site?
I
We're
know,
doing
I
what
know.
you told us to do to rank.
I think the whole approach, like their messages, are borderline gaslighting because you asked me early at first, like, how did my sites fare? And I was
Yeah,
looking at them a couple of weeks ago. I just set the Google Search Console to 16 months back.
yeah.
And I can see like the roller coasters, but it's like a different pattern in each one. Now, so when you say, when Google tells me, this isn't quality, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're
That's what
just
you
saying
wanted
it.
me to do, yeah.
Not only this is what you wanted me to do, but I'm doing the same thing. Sometimes it's quality, sometimes it's not quality. It's quality this month, and in a few months, then it's deranked because it's no longer quality. And then another site of mine, by the way, sometimes outranks another site.
Yeah.
It's the same type of content. You're just rolling a dice.
Yeah. It's very confusing, basically. Okay. I had like one kind of like pushback on your strategy that I was preparing this podcast basically, and I was reading about social traffic referrals, right? It's like you're focusing on that a lot. And to news site since 2020, the traffic from Facebook is down 80% actually. From Twitter, it's down 60%. How does it make you feel about the strategy you're going after right now, in terms of like future proofing and all of that? Because obviously, it's like Google's sending less traffic to websites, but I think it's all the internet that's sending less traffic to websites at this point. Like it's like we're moving more and more towards closed ecosystems where you engage with people on the platform, and then you pay for us to send them to your offer after you've built engagement, basically. And all these platforms are moving towards that, and there's no regulation happening that's stopping them to do that. That's what makes me a little nervous about developing all these things, because while YouTube is amazing, while Twitter is amazing, etc., and I connect with great people there, it's not a big traffic generator. You probably knew that. Like,
Yeah.
how does it put what you do in perspective?
So it's an excellent point, and I think you're right. And I think this is where the world is like headed towards. It's already happening, right? And I do really hope that regulation would kick in, not as a publisher, but as like a citizen of the world, because I think the current kind of trajectory is very worrying. You're going to have a bunch of companies, corporates, that will basically control the information. Now, I don't like conspiracy theories, and it sounds a bit like that, but it really is what's happening. And Google right now is the main culprit, but Meta is also. It's a similar concern because they have the same kind of interest as a corporate. They're committed to their shareholders. I don't hold it against them. It's not that they're evil. It's just that that's what they are. I do think that regulation is going to have to kick in because it goes against the interest of any democracy or Western country, to have private companies control the information that goes to your people. And what also worries me is the fact that these same companies are the big players in AI.
Yeah.
So when Google talks about generative search, I'm worried not as a publisher. I'm worried as as a person, because what this essentially means is that the same company that controls the pipe and that controls the monetization of the pipe is about to start producing the content. And I think this is way, way too much power for a single player as big as Google. So I really hope that the antitrust trial breaks this up, because I think it's just too dangerous.
Yeah. Go EU, It's like, thanks to EU. Actually. It's like that's the only government body that actually does something about these things. So it's like, let's see how the antitrust goes. But like so far, the EU has been pushing way, way further on these companies than the US has.
Right, but it's about time. Yeah.
So we hope the US joins in. But in terms of your sites, how do you feel about how does it make you feel about your strategy?
So the way I see it, eventually where we're headed, like the future, is personalized AI agents, right? Like a decade from now or 2 decades from now, I don't think there will be, like, websites will not be a thing as they are today, because most people will not go to websites. They will probably, I think, I could be wrong on this because I was wrong about other things before, but my sensation is, like, I already go to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is not a personalized agent per se, although I do have, like, I pre-prompted it in the custom instructions. It knows who I am, what, where I live, what I do, all of that. I added there on purpose, my name and everything. It's already a much more personalized experience. It knows what I prefer to hear in answers. Like, I want your answers to be short because otherwise it goes on forever. I have, go online when you're not sure. Like I have a lot of instructions there that make it like a customized agent, like a very similar experience.
Yeah.
To me, it's obvious that this is the future. Like who wants to go to a website? Who wants to go search Google when I can just click on the button? Everything is on voice, by the way. I don't like type even everything.
Okay.
So I just like,
We
I
live
have
in
a
the future,
question.
clearly.
Yeah, I have a question. I just hit that button there. It replies like, "Hi, Anne," and it gives me the answer that I want. I can ask follow-up questions, right? Because it's a dialogue, it's not search. And like the whole experience is already like 10 times better than anything that I could do on Google. I don't see ads. I don't get interrupted by anything. Nobody is bothering me. My agent is like my filter, right? It
Yeah.
goes
It's
through
between
everything.
you and the information and
Yeah,
all the people who want to get something
correct.
from you.
And I get the information in exactly the way I want it to be. So I think that's the future. I think
Fair enough.
eventually it will get to that point. And I think that also the next stage is going to be some sort of, it's called agency or autonomy, where my AI
Oh, does
agent
stuff without you, yeah. Yeah.
will also be able to like call places.
It's already
And
possible.
yeah,
Google
it's
has made
possible.
the
Technically,
technical
it's
demos
possible.
for that.
Yeah, it could do this, but they're not releasing it yet, and I can see why, because it also comes with some pretty major risks in all kinds of direction. And I also think that when that happens, first of all, it's not good enough yet. It's going to get there, but it's not good enough yet. But when it gets there, it's going to have to be self-aware to some extent, and this is when we'll start seeing consciousness develop in AI. That's
I
the
think
way.
we're going a bit far here. We were talking about.
I know. I told you I could talk about AI forever.
I
This is
can see, you're passionate about it. But
yeah,
like,
but I
so
think
what happens to your
for
website then? That's my
right,
question.
for websites, I think eventually the internet, like 20 years from now, is going to look immensely different. But
Yeah.
as a business owner with a web publishing company right now, I don't care about a decade from now. I don't care about 20 years from now. It's an eternity in terms of the
Yeah.
internet. Okay. I've been doing this for 23 years. There was no way 20 years ago that I could have known, what was going to happen today or that it would have mattered to me. So I don't care about, like, I can see where this is going long term. I can see that long term websites will be in huge trouble. They will disappear essentially, eventually. But it doesn't really change anything for my business decisions today. Today, like the horizon that I am looking at is 2 to 3 years. Anything beyond that, I think it's just foolish to plan for because things change
I
so
think
much
that's
faster.
a really good point, because it's like a lot of people are obviously a little bit negative about the industry right now, but it's like they're so focused on where this is going that they forget where they are right now. And it's like what's making money today.
Yeah.
It's still like pretty classic, building a business, building a site, driving traffic to it in different ways. Google's changing a bit, etc., but it's not changing that much if you really think about it. And it's like we can't live in the future. Like in the future, you want to have made a lot of money in the past.
Right.
To do that,
Exactly.
and to
Let's
do
make the
that, you
money
need to think
now.
about what's working now. And so I think a lot of the industry needs to hear that, because they're so obsessed with what people talk about on social media, what they see on TV, etc. But the reality is most people don't even use ChatGPT right now, and they don't even care about AI. And they're still typing Google in Google to go on Google. It's like it's
And they're still on Facebook and they're still like the
exactly.
pattern have not changed that much
It's
yet.
going to be the
Maybe,
biggest slowing down of the progress is going to be the people.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. People first, and then the second thing will be governments with the regulations. It won't be the technology. The technology can like go there really fast,
Yeah.
but people will take slower to transition. But yeah, I agree. I don't think we can plan ahead that far, and I don't think it therefore doesn't matter. I want to make money in 2024.
Okay, I'll have one last debate for you, and then after that, I promise I'll let you go. But one thing that you've mentioned is that are you still active on 25 sites today, by the way, or
Technically, they're
okay?
not all active. Like,
So one thing obviously I saw your Facebook pages, and so I saw the websites that were associated with it because there were links to them. So I saw 3 of them, and it's like to me, they felt a little low effort, not necessarily on the content, but rather on the building. They were very simple. They're like pretty much like a white design. All the new EEAT stuff people talk about, like who is the author, social profiles, photos, bios, info on the about page. One of them had info on the about page, the rest didn't have. Contact info, etc. Like you kind of like ignoring all these things. And so I couldn't help but think when I was preparing this podcast on whether focusing on the other traffic sources was the right thing, or should you actually also like adjust some things on your site as well? What do you think about that?
Okay, so I don't believe in EAT, in EAT. I
Okay.
don't believe in the Google guidelines.
Okay.
I think this is what matters to me is the user experience. When the user gets to my page, does that page deliver what they came, what they came for? If
Okay.
they came for information, does it give them the information in the right way? If they came for entertainment, does it give them that? And it doesn't need to be perfect. This is a business, right? I need to be cost effective as well. I remember, I had like an eye opener. It was 15 years ago, even longer, when I created content and I had an expert check that content. And to me, it was low quality content. I wrote, but whoever thought about AI back then, I wrote the article. And I wrote an article about gardening. And to me, that was like, fluff and nothing like I was not an expert was not needed. And then I gave somebody who was an expert, a professional landscaper, and he was like, wow, this is an excellent article.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you're teaching people so much here. And that taught me a lot. Like what you and I consider to be quality content is not necessarily what the average user thinks of the same article. That has been like an eye opener to me. And ever since then, I know that I don't have to go crazy with providing the very best content based on my standards. If it's an informational question, then it needs to be helpful. I agree with Google, like content needs to be helpful. But what I consider to be helpful maybe for a question is not necessarily what somebody else considers to be helpful. So to go back to the way we do our sites, I don't think you need a flashy main page. I don't think you need like major experts. And some people will say, it's not even Google saying that, but some people will like go based on those guidelines and go, overboard with EAT and with bios and with all of those things. And I have seen so many websites
So crash.
crash on the HQ with these amazing teams of experts with LinkedIn profiles and Twitter profiles and like all of the signals that everybody, and they crashed because Google says one thing and does another. And the thing is, to create that kind of EAT or designs or everything else, it costs a lot of money. You have to really invest in it. And to me, I sort of almost, because I figured Google can't really tell, I don't want to invest in that.
Okay.
It's not helping my user. It's clearly not really even
So you don't
getting.
think the user wants to know who's behind the content? They don't care.
No, they don't.
Okay.
How many people on your site click on the About Us page when they get to an article?
Not too bad, actually. It's like About Us, the author page, I would argue that not many people click. But on the About Us, no, people, we get traffic. Okay.
Which site are you talking about? Authority Hacker?
Even some other sites, like it's like the traffic is fair. It's like in the thousands per month, basically, for usually.
So
for the
not on our sites.
Okay.
In my niches, at least, people come for the information and they just generally, either move on. If we're lucky, they sign up for the mailing list. I haven't seen anyone very, very few click on the About Us page. So
Okay.
to do this,
Depends where you link to it as well, right? If it's in your footer only, obviously nobody's going to click on it. If it's in your main navigation, more people are going to click on it.
And again, it depends on the type of niche and the type of content that you deliver. Now, I deliberately, by the way, avoid content that requires a lot of research and requires expertise. Now, if I were in a niche or a site on a top, then in that case, I would hire experts and I would work more because it's needed for the user experience. But I don't want to do this just for Google. Like,
Okay, fine. It's like I just wanted your opinion on that because obviously it's like it's something people talk about, and it's like it's like I got to see it. Thanks for sharing, by the way. But it's like something that people not don't necessarily see, and it's interesting to see your point of view as well. And you've made a lot of great points, basically. So, do you want to talk about the Web Publisher Association?
yeah, and just in a few words, because it's just really an initiative at this point. There is no Web Publishers Association. I just feel that it's something that is needed at this point. I think
Can
that,
you explain what it is first so people understand?
yeah. So my concept, like, and this is my vision, if you like, is that web publishers, smaller web publishers like us, I'm a small time web publisher. There's the huge companies, there's Dash, and there's, Forbes and all of that. They have their association. There are associations there for huge publishers, but small potatoes like us, like people who have, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 million page views a month, or 100,000 page views a month. Like, we have no voice right now. We're out there, we're like getting dealt whatever, but it's not just Google. Google is one thing, but Amazon affiliates, like what they're doing right now. Or it could be Facebook. Facebook could ban my page tomorrow and I have no recourse. Like, there's nobody I can call and say, listen, you made a mistake here, or whatever. There's nobody to talk to, right? You'll get diverted to who knows where. It's the same with all of the platforms. So, like, we have no voice right now. If we're lucky, then we work with a network like Mediavine or Raptive, where maybe, they're more accommodating, but everybody else pretty much ignores us. And yet we are still a major player, like, on the internet. So, like, there's a lot of internet pages out there where we create the content. And I think that if we were to sort of get together and like pull resources and make our voice heard, I hope that maybe we can make a small change. And in addition to that, I think having like a professional association could be beneficial to people in many ways. It can provide a chance for networking, for education, all kinds of ways for people to get together, learn from one another, maybe even conferences online, or maybe even in real life. And discounts, for example, that, all kinds of things, benefits
We do that
for
as Toy Hacker. We actually negotiate discounts down for our members, actually. We cut our affiliate commissions quite often. We reach out to tool companies.
Right.
And then we're like, how do we get the cheapest price for our members? Because it helps us.
Yeah.
Like,
So I don't want to compete with you, but
I mean, you can compete on the discounts. I don't mind at all. Like, I'll tell you who we talk to, etc. I don't mind.
so, but I think that there are so many publishers who could benefit from this. And like right now, we're like, most of us are working alone. Some of us have mastermind groups and we have places like this. But I think we could all benefit for something a little bit bigger. For me personally, like I don't think discounts, I don't need, and I can network, like I can do all of these things without an association. So for me personally, the big thing here is, let's get our voice heard. Let's get, imagine having those points of contact in Amazon affiliates, in Pinterest, in Meta, in Google, maybe.
Yeah.
That we can talk to. We can say, hey, listen, guys, what you're doing now is not good. Work with us. Talk to us before you issue these things, because we have 5,000 of your, best affiliates or publishers or whatever, that, so talk to us, and let's, I think that could be very, very helpful for everyone in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. Do you have a concrete plan? If people are interested,
So, yeah, so I have a
I
group
guess
of
you follow you on
people.
Twitter, right? We put your Twitter handle at the bottom, and then when
Yeah.
you're ready.
So I managed. There's a few publishers that are already on board. I can mention John Dykstra and Tony Hill, and there's a few others. I don't want to mention their names, to out them before asking them. But John and Tony told me that it would be okay to mention their names, but there are others as well. And right now, our motto is, like, a small group is, I love the idea, but I'm not sure I have the time, because we're all super busy, right? We're all business owners. We all have to manage our own businesses, and I'm in the same boat. So the idea right now is to sort of outsource the management of the project, but first we need to find a bunch of publishers who are big enough to step up and come in and say, yeah, we want to be like on the board of directors of this thing, it's going to be a nonprofit. But we need a board of directors who will sort of shape the thing, like the policies and everything else. So this is where we're at. It's slow going because everybody is super busy with their businesses. But
Especially these days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea, a lot of people mentioned it, several people talk about it, etc. It's like, it's like, as a French person, I'm not gonna complain about unions,
I don't see it as a union, though. I don't think it's
I
a union.
kind of.
It's a professional association.
Okay, yeah.
That's
That's the
the way
polite
I
name
see
for a
it.
union. That's what you're telling me.
No, it's a professional association.
A lot of what you mentioned, we try to do at our level, like not on that level that you're talking about, but I have ways to talk to major tool companies, for example, like Ahrefs credit system. I've talked hours with Tim about it, about like how about problems, etc. I'm gonna do a podcast with him. By the way, we're gonna go over all the problems Ahrefs has and how people are not happy, etc. So that's
And I would love for players like Ahrefs, like
yeah,
Mediavine, like all of these to join forces with this kind of association as maybe as sponsors. Maybe
yeah.
there's a lot of room here for cooperation and collaboration. That would be like a win-win situation because in the end it's the same industry, right? They're working with
If
publishers.
small publishers struggle, they struggle. Like that's the thing.
Exactly. So there's this whole
Ecosystem. Yeah.
ecosystem here, yeah, that's about this industry. And I think it's time that this industry sort of comes together and finds its voice. In
Okay.
the
So if people want to hear more about that, should we just follow you on Twitter or should we send them somewhere else?
I guess, yeah, follow me on Twitter, on the blog, on
All
everything.
right, we'll just put the handle here so people can follow. Any final word of wisdom for everyone who listened to this entire interview that a message you want to pass to them?
Well, just to say that I know that everybody is struggling these days. There is like the whole, speaking of an industry, then our entire industry went through a lot over the last year and specifically last few months. Many publishers have relied on Google traffic. And so these changes have been rough on everybody and like to the point of affecting them emotionally and like creating a lot of stress. But I do want to like end with a hopeful, optimistic message. I think, like I said, I don't know 10 years from now, I don't know 20 years from now, but I think there's actually a lot of potential in the next year, 2, 3 years. I think a lot of things that are happening could be very beneficial for people who are able to adapt. Think outside the box a little bit. There are a lot of things that are positive that are happening. So opportunities are still out there,
And also, I think it's like a lot of people have done well, but also a lot of people were struggling before. It's like, in a way, the cards are being reshuffled now, and people who have struggled in the past potentially have an opportunity to be more leveled with other players in this big change that is happening right now. And so it's like, I think people are focused a little too much on traffic sources and need to think about other business levers that they can use to actually pull ahead. That's really the message we're trying to push forward right now. I think it's like traffic is still a big thing. You should still do all this stuff, etc. But there's many other things you can do. And yeah, but anyway, Anne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a really cool discussion. We've talked through Twitter for ages. We never really talked in real life, but I think that was a good first discussion. So thanks for everything, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.